Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the BNI Partners In Excellence show. I am so excited today. We have our very own personal injury attorney, Alex Kannan, on the show. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Andy.
I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, well, I know you do, so everyone mostly knows that you make movies kind of as a side thing. So we'll get into like some of the legal attorney-ish stuff, but like, what do you think of the setup so far for our show? You like it for Partners in Excellence? Is this good enough?
Beautiful. It's more than good enough. It's perfect.
Okay. All right. Whew, now that we got that out of the way.
You just need to get that sliding barn door.
Yeah. Hey, Manny, I need that barn door thing. You can help me with that, right?
Manuel has a referral.
Andy has a referral for Manny. So, have you done podcasts before, like long form interviews and that kind of thing?
Not a podcast, first time.
No Oh, really?
It's a very cool experience.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, you're gonna be so good at this.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
You talk for a living, so. Wait, is it talk? Do you guys say you talk for a living, or do you say you argue for a living?
I watch my words for a living.
You watch your words for a living.
I try and tread carefully, but then when I focus on art, I can just fully be who I am.
I don't know. I feel like in the examples you've given us at the chapter meeting, you choose your words very intentionally.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to.
Carefully might just be so you don't get in trouble, but they're definitely intentional.
Intentional as well. Yeah. Yeah. Because what we basically do is, as Miguel always says, facts tell, stories sell. So what we have to do is we have to tell a story. So that's where the intentional aspect comes in. Yeah. Because our client is just a number, a case number, and we have to put life and give life to that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, let's talk about the practice first of all. Let's like actually talk about the thing you represent in BNI. So personal injury can cover a lot of different things. I actually have a couple specific personal injury questions I'm going to ask you. This is not free legal advice, just so you know, they're more entertainment value questions.
Sure.
You're like, hey, can you come on the show? I have some questions to ask you about a friend. That'll be $500. So, okay, first of all, just kind of set the groundwork. You know, what is it you represent inside BNI? What kind of cases are you getting referred from BNI? What are the good things that we can be looking for that are going to help you advance your practice?
Yes, thank you for asking that. So the focus is personal injury. As a subsection of personal injury law, I usually focus on car accident cases and dog bite cases. I work on my cases with another attorney who is a former trial attorney because these days when you have a lot of cases involving car accidents, the insurance companies are giving, especially the big five, Farmers, State Farm, they're giving bad offers of pre-litigation, hoping that the client will just accept it. So
what do you mean by a bad? You're saying bad offer. They probably don't call it that at their meetings. Here's our bad offer category. So you're saying it's bad because it's low or it doesn't cover what is really needed. What do you mean by that?
It could be a number of things. It's low. It doesn't cover pain and suffering. Doesn't cover future medical expenses. It's just not fair for the client.
Got it.
So basically, what that does is that forces you into litigation. So these days,
is that a tactic?
Yeah. Yeah,
really?
Yeah, it's a tactic that's been happening. We're seeing it more and more lately.
Wow.
With the insurance companies. So that's why I just work with my co-counsel from the get-go, just basically saying, hey, in case things don't work out pre-lit, then we could just get ready for litigation. That's kind of the same with dog bite cases too.
So with dog bite cases, they're not like civil cases?
Dog bite cases are
they
civil.
are civil cases,
civil, yeah.
But is there insurance involved? Like with the property insurance probably, right?
Homeowners insurance.
Homeowners insurance, okay.
Yeah.
So they'll do like the same thing? They'll just throw a bad offer out there or
yeah.
Really?
Not all the time. But we're ready for it these days. So once you get into litigation, it goes out. The file goes from the hands of an insurance adjuster. It goes to their in-house counsel. Mm-hmm. So then you're dealing with the civil defense attorney. So now you can actually have serious discussions on negotiations and go into mediation and take depositions and stuff like that. So very rarely will you actually proceed to a trial in the civil case. Yeah.
On the civil side, like for the dog bite kind of stuff.
Both. This is dog bite and car accident cases. Yeah.
So I know something that you've talked about a lot more recently, I guess over the course of all these years too, but is rideshare injury from rideshare accidents that happen like rideshare with like Lyft and Uber. Can I say the names? Like sure, Lyft and Uber, or maybe even a regular taxi or whatever. So, prior to you saying that, I really hadn't thought about it. I guess I don't know if it was just this preset notion like, oh yeah, you're rideshare, you're totally safe. It's completely insulated from the rest of the traffic. Like that's obviously not true, but
sure,
there's obviously some bias in my head that thinks that. How much more prevalent has that become? Because you're mentioning it. It's something that I know you'll take referrals for. So, like, is this like a progressively growing problem, or is it kind of like flattened out?
No, it's more common these days just because more people are taking Ubers and Lyfts.
Is it like really bad stuff, or is it like, I'm going from the airport to the hotel and, I tripped on the curb and my head hit the door? Like what kind of like, give me some examples here.
So the common case that we would take is basically you're the driver of an Uber or Lyft and you're on the job, or you're a passenger inside the Uber or Lyft vehicle, and then the accident occurs. And you're not the one at fault, because we represent the plaintiffs, which is contingency. So they're the injured party. And then you were involved in an accident, and then you suffered injuries, and you have to go get treatment. That's kind of an ideal referral in this context.
Okay, so and again, I just don't know a lot about the rideshare stuff on the business side. So I imagine that like Uber and Lyft also has their own insurance.
Yeah.
But then also the driver who owns that car probably carries their own insurance as well, right?
That could be a possibility. But if the accident happens during the Uber or Lyft, then Uber, that's going to be the company that's going to take the responsibility. And yes, they have a big policy limit. They could have up to $1 million, right? So obviously that benefits everybody, because it's a high limit policy. And let's just be frank, since we're dealing with the civil side, civil cases, it's all about money. It's all about compensation, basically, right? That's how you basically right the wrong for an injured party. And because they have Uber or Lyft, these rideshare companies have high insurance policies, well, that means there's an opportunity for you to get more money. And everybody makes more money in the end.
So are you like, how's that as far as like your caseload nowadays? Is that like, what would you say that represents? Is it like 5% of cases, 10? Is it more like 50? Like how much of this, how prevalent is this at your practice?
Are we talking about Uber or Lyft? Or are we
talking
like
the ride share, just kind of like what's the mix of the ride share portion of the cases that you have coming in nowadays?
I just have a few cases pending right now. My main personal injury practice is basically that's coming from BNI. So the referrals I get, because those come through word of mouth. I may get it from a prior client referral, because the way my setup is I started doing just immigration, and then I started, I had one immigration client who was arrested for a crime, so then I started doing criminal defense as well. And then another client got involved in a car accident, so then I started doing personal injury. So I'd say right now I'm maybe a 60% immigration, 15 to 20 criminal defense, and 15 to 20 for personal injury. And the majority of the PI referrals, personal injury, come through BNI or through word of mouth, through other clients.
And I know some of those PI cases can be pretty, well, I was going to say the word lucrative. I don't think that's the word I mean to use. That's just the one that came out first. But I mean, I know that some of those cases settle for very large amounts of money, because, I've known people that they got like hurt on the job, and they're not going to work for the rest of their life because they literally can't.
Yeah. So that's a little different, because that's workers' comp. We don't do workers' comp cases because that injury happened on the job.
Got it.
But,
okay.
We know other attorneys we can refer the case to.
So in
like your one referral, which was a great referral, your friend, without disclosing
the
name. Yeah. So that person was injured on the job, and my colleague was able to take care of the case. So.
The reason I thought of that was kind of because of that, and. Yeah. I know that the example I'm using is a little bit more extreme, or maybe they can't work for the remaining 30, 40, or 50 years of their life. But in that case where there's a personal injury, some of those settlement amounts can be pretty high.
They can be, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's just a matter, like I said, of going into litigation. We had one case of a dog bite case where the pre-litigation offer was a certain amount. We entered into litigation. The final amount was 3 times as much.
Oh.
So it was one of those cases where it was certainly worth it. Obviously, the client decides. It's up to the client. So some clients say, I just want to wrap it up. I don't want to enter litigation. I don't want to have to sit here and fill out these interrogatories with you. I don't want to do depositions, and I definitely don't want to go to trial. I just want to, okay, that's the client's decision. We do what the client says, which is what we do in all our cases. We give advice, and the client decides what to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes, much to our disappointment, but we can only give advice. We can't tell anyone what to do.
So so then I'm hearing there kind of is like a little bit of a meeting of the minds at some point where you go, okay, maybe the client goes, I don't like this much hassle, but I am satisfied with this much compensation. So is it like a balance between the tolerating the process and then the amount that you're willing to settle for?
Yeah.
Is it as simple as that, or am I oversimplifying it?
Well, it really depends on the mindset and the temperament of the client, because if the client's not on board, it comes down to whether you have the client on your side or not. Because if the client's not on your side and you're the client's representative, then there's been a breakdown in communication. We've all had it before where we have problematic clients. But then it becomes an issue that, if the client's not trusting you, then you have a bigger issue, and then you need to think of alternatives, like maybe the client should seek a second opinion and, maybe think about what the client wants to do. But there should be ideally, the most important thing in the car accident cases is, definitely under promise and over deliver, because from the very first consultation, like with all our cases, we have to vet the case very carefully to see if this is going to be a good fit for the firm or if the client's going to be a headache, because these personal injury cases, we have one right now. We've had it for 3 years. They go on for a long time.
Oh, that's a long time.
Some immigration cases can take up to 8 years. So this person needs to, if this person's not on board, or if you think this person's going to be a headache, you're going to be with this person for anywhere from 2 to 4, 5, 8. It's crazy, So we have to. And
is 8 like the longest case you have had? You've had like kind of open?
No, immigration. I had a case for 10 years.
No kidding.
Yeah, 10 years. It was one of my first cases when I started my practice.
I was going to say it had to be because you're super young.
Thank you. I'm trying to grow this out.
You're keeping our chapter age down at average low. You got me and the other guys who are pushing it.
We have some young folks as well who can skew that if you'd like. But yeah, that one case I had that was had that for 10 years, and 10 Lord knows I got paid off 10 years ago on that case, so I've been sitting with that case for a long time and not making money off of it. But you have an ethical obligation. Your appearances before the court, and you got to keep advocating for your client. So that's why we kind of select our cases carefully, because with the car accident cases, I'm always very hesitant in the beginning to say, hey, how much money are you going to make? We can't even say that. We have a lot of rules as attorneys. We can't give any guarantees ethically. We can't promise anything.
Sure.
Yeah, as a lot of professionals are. But I always make it a point that I don't even know if you're going to be able to make any money out of this case. We got to do research. We got to do investigation. What does that mean, research, investigation? Well, we have to send a letter of representation to the insurance company. We have to send correspondence to the insurance company. We have to talk with the insurance company either over the phone or through a letter or through email to see what they're, where are they at in terms of liability? Where are they at in terms of their offers? Did you already talk to the insurance company? Did you give a recorded statement? Did you say you don't have any pain? And now you're saying, now you're hiring an attorney, you're getting an MRI, you're getting epidural injections. These are all issues we got to look at from the beginning. So, yeah.
There could be a lot of details.
Yeah.
And potential complications.
Yeah. And then, there's also some people have a distrust because they say, wait a second, you're charging contingency. So you're not charging me for, like you charge me for a DUI or you charge me for an immigration case. So how do I know you as the attorney, you're not going to take all the money, Or how do I know the doctor's not going to take all the money? This is I don't trust this whole racket, which is completely understandable,
So how do you overcome that? I mean, how do you, how have you been able to kind of sort out where you like find yourself in that argument, if you will, like telling someone, look, you're asking me for this. Mm-hmm. You clearly have a problem. I'm telling you, I know some things. We have a lot more to figure out. How do you meet them where they're at in their distrust to help them actually get the thing that they want?
So if it's the initial consultation, if it's just confusion and concern, hey, I just want to make sure I'm making some money off of this, we can explain it. But if it's already saying, well, I don't agree that you guys should be making this much, can you lower your percentage? Then I just walk away from the case because I already know this person's going to be a headache. But what I tell clients is, for example, this is what I say. I say it, my colleagues say it, my co-counsel say it, because I've been fortunate to work with honest, ethical, mentor attorneys who've mentored me, and you just say, look, our pre-litigation fee is 33 1/3%. Mm-hmm. If we enter litigation, it's 40%. We always try and make it so that the client winds up taking home the most, right? So you can go through health insurance for your treatment, or you can go with the private, doctor who will also charge on a contingency. The doctor will assert a lien, just like the attorneys assert a lien, LIN, which is a contractual agreement to pay at the end with the proceeds. What we always tell clients is it normally winds up being a 3-way split. Mm-hmm. A third for the attorneys, a third for the medical providers, and a third for the client. We always do our best to make sure the client gets the most, though. But what happens, we've had cases where clients have federal statutory health care plans like ERISA. And with ERISA, you don't have much negotiation. You don't have much leverage, right? Mm-hmm. We were able to get them to lower their lien significantly in one case, but most of the time, if you have an ERISA plan, you better be ready to pay, what they're asking. So in that case, sometimes the health insurance might take most of it,
Wow.
Yeah. But that's where it comes into basically saying, hey, this is where we're at. We successfully managed to get an ERISA plan significantly lowered, and the client wound up netting the most, right?
Wow, that's great.
But that's basically what it comes down to. How much is the case worth? I have no way of knowing. We don't know. You're saying you have back pain, you have neck pain. Okay. The only time when we have an idea is how much the case is worth is when I did a wrongful death case where somebody was sadly passed away in a car accident. And then we found out what the policy limits were on the insurance company. Well, they paid out the policy limits. So we knew there wasn't going to be any, otherwise then you would file a lawsuit and fight it in court. Because first, before you go into litigation, you basically have to ask the defense to pay out their full policy limits, right? You just have to ask them to do that. They can say yes, they can say no, right? And then basically with their response, then you enter litigation, right? Obviously, if they say yes, then no. You're not going to go into litigation because they're offering to pay out. Yeah.
So how many years in you now?
Pardon me?
How many years into having your own practice are you now?
10 years.
10, okay. So,
and I really started to focus on PI cases since I've been a BNI member because I came to BNI wanting to grow my personal injury practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, man. So tell me, I'm very curious if there, every once in a while, you start getting to year 3, year 5, year 7, year 10 and beyond, and you start learning things or things have changed. And it's not to say that you don't know things at the front end, but when you're like really in the belly of the beast, you start really kind of figuring your way out around a lot of things. Mm-hmm. What is something that maybe you thought was true at the beginning that turned out not to be true where you're at now, 10 years down the road?
That's a good question.
Was there like a stereotype that you thought about, oh, this is how things go, and then you turned out, oh, it's really not that way?
Well, when I started my practice, I was doing, I was in immigration court all the time, just litigating cases. The immigration law is administrative, so it's not the same standard of proof as criminal. For example, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Unfortunately, if you lose in immigration court, the consequences can be worse than in a criminal case because you're facing banishment from the country and removal. Deportation was the old word pre-97. Post-1997 is removal. And, that's what I started doing, and that was very exhausting. That got exhausting very quickly just because you basically saw the system is heavily skewed in favor of the government, and there's really not much you can do in terms of advocating for your clients, especially in cases like asylum and things like that.
Because you're saying it's mostly just procedural, and then because you use the word administrative.
The way the law is, it's administrative, so the standard of proof is very low, and it's skewed heavily in favor of the government. Got it. So that became tiresome and disheartening after a while, just having case denied. So that was disappointing and frustrating.
Well, maybe I'll angle the question a little differently. What's something you've been surprised by, that maybe you didn't think was going to occur over the course of your first 10 years and go, oh my gosh, I've been surprised by this or that in a good way or a bad way?
Just getting outcomes on cases you thought you were going to lose.
Surprised by the outcome itself.
Pleasantly surprised by the outcome.
The decision.
Pleasantly, yeah. So and just clients, you seeing crazy things at work, clients doing crazy things, and nothing really surprises you anymore.
You're super desensitized nowadays.
Yeah, it's just crazy the kind of things you see, and you're just not really surprised anymore. Anything can happen.
Now, without naming names, because we can't name names here. Of course. Can you share a story about something just absolutely that came out of left field? We're like, whoa, that was a wild consult, or like, I can't believe I just fielded this call. We just took this inquiry in.
Well, I got a call one time. I don't even do this. This is maybe something. This is a family law case. I got a call from someone wanting to figure out how he can force his girlfriend to have an abortion so he won't pay child support.
Oh my gosh.
So that was weird.
How'd they find you for that?
I have no idea.
Oh wow.
That was one. Gosh, there's so many.
That is kind of out of left field.
I'll think of.
Well, it's okay. I'm sure there's a lot of really kind of obscure ones that I didn't mean to just like pop the question on you like that. But I'm sitting here, I'm listening. I'm sure you get asked a lot of really odd things that maybe somebody thinks they've got a case and they actually don't, and you're like, no, that's really your fault, and there's no way we can.
I got a call from someone saying they accidentally drove through the 125 and they're worried they're going to get a ticket.
Through the toll road?
Yeah.
How about we just completely switch the conversation into let's make the 125 a public access road instead of paying toll, because there's a bunch of us that still pay toll and we all like to use it.
I say it really depends what entrance, exit you got off. You can always check online. You can make the payment there. So that was a bizarre phone call. Somebody called, started saying racial epithets, against immigrants and specific types of immigrants. And
what? Like just a random phone call? Like, I hope someone answers so I can start.
I want to get this person deported because they're doing this and they're doing that and they're taking over. I had a client who was I fought years for his case, and he was just about to get his green card, and then I discovered he may have raped somebody. So apparently the clients left the country, and I don't know. And I fought really hard to get him to that point.
No.
He had a clean record, and it was years and years of.
How do you find that out?
Well, I called, and somebody else from the family responded and informed me. We were getting cases reopened, and we went through a lot of hurdles to get him to this point, and apparently he fled, and he's not even in the country.
Oh, yeah. Yikes. Okay. That's a couple of serious nuggets right there.
Yeah.
So I want to take time to talk about, we'll pivot from that. Okay. That's some hard stuff, dude. I want to pivot from that, and I want to talk about like what are like inlets to you for the types of cases that you're looking for and that you want, and that you can actually effectively help the people that are injured and hurt, whether it's personal injury from the car, dog bite, that kind of thing. So what are great referral sources for you? Obviously, the person who's like hurt,
of course,
but who are they talking to that would know to call you?
I always say people like Nuri from our group, Spanish-speaking tax preparers are good referral sources. Just because.
How did they end up talking about personal injury at their tax appointment?
Well, for example, they've been going with their.
Well, I know Nuri and her staff are like super friendly, so I get that. Like, yes, they're personal and people are going to talk to them. But
so someone who does your taxes, someone who's your bookkeeper, like Aaron. This is someone who knows your life basically. And this is someone who has been going to you for years. So the odds of something starting up in conversation is likely because they know your kids, they know your family, they know this. It's like, hey, how's so-and-so? Well, he's not doing too good. He's in the hospital. Why? Well, he got rear-ended and he has a problem now. He's not able to remember things. I'm really concerned. Or, I met my girlfriend lives in Mexico. I want to figure out how to immigrate her. Or, I'm really embarrassed to say my dad got popped at the border bringing drugs across the border, and I don't know what to do. I don't know which detention center he's at. I don't know if he's talked to the law enforcement officers. So that's how those referrals come up, because my thing is circumstantial.
Right. Well, that's what I was saying. Like, that's what I'm thinking. But that's what I was saying. Like, how are other people positioned and prepared to refer you? And so it is in these instances where there's just conversation going back and forth, and in your references like Nuri and Aaron, it's like, okay, well, you're already dealing with their finances, their tax and their personal situation, their finance. So there's a level of depth there to begin with. And I know, interestingly enough, there's a lot of similarity to that when it comes to things with like trust and estate with Maribel, and Mark and I even talked about this with loans, and Miguel with real estate. It's like you're doing something really big for that person. You know, they're not just buying flowers at the corner, and that's cool and special, but like I can go buy flowers all the time. I'm not buying a house all the time. Yeah. I'm not in a car accident all the time. I'm not doing my taxes I do my taxes once a year. Yeah. So I don't do it, and
or I'll take a chance and I'll put myself in front of YouTube, and then come to you.
Well, yeah, and then in some cases, like I understand where you go visit that professional. It's been a long time, so you do this like little catch up thing. You go, oh, what's changed since I've seen you? Oh, well, I did that. I got fired from this. I hired a new job here. I got in a car accident, and almost died. Wait. Go back to that. Well, you got a what? What happened? And they just kind of come out because you don't see these people on a regular basis. It's needs based.
Yeah, it's needs-based, and it kind of, like I said, with my situation, it's circumstantial. So, really, we help everybody under the sun. I say Spanish-speaking just because I speak Spanish, my staff speaks Spanish. It's a niche we've been helping for years. So I always say, Spanish-speaking tax preparers, people like Aaron, and just, I think of the referrals I've gotten from BNI. they've all been very good, and they've come through. Just thinking about some of the members, one member, it was his customer. You know? Another member, it was his relative. You see, and then they striked up a conversation about, hey, this car accident happened. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because time is of the essence in these cases. And even with your referral, you know, that wasn't something I took, but my colleague, he was on it like that, and he was able to get a recovery form. So
Yeah.
So really,
super grateful for that, by the way. Thank you for
no
getting that in the right hands.
Yeah, I mean, we're not mentioning names, so it's fine. But I just thought it was funny. I keep bringing this up because based on the name of the email address, I was like, this is spam. It's a spam. But then I saw Andy Cruz. I was like, oh wait, this is real. This is not what that email address. I was convinced
probably isn't fake anymore.
So yeah, I just think about those referrals, family members, customers, people they know, people they trust, and then they say, well, we'll talk to this guy, you know. And then once we talk to him, you know, I'm able to kind of explain how the situation works. And I always say, just like you don't want to chase people for business. This is how it works. You think about it. If you want to go with us, it's fine. You know? I don't do any of the scare tactics like, well, you know, you got to watch out. Otherwise, times there's some statute of limitations.
There's like some boogeyman around the corner.
Statute of limitations is 2 years for these cases, but the sooner you get started on it, the better. You know, because time is of the essence. Because if you come a year later to the attorney, we can't do much in terms of, you know, strategizing the case. So that's why it's important to start from the get-go.
All right, so so this is kind of a multi-part question here. One is who are good referral sources that you want but don't have, and why would they choose you?
Well, just anybody.
Like I'm thinking of things like the chiropractor, the massage therapist, or the guy who runs the MRI machine over in the corner over there.
I would just say small neighborhood mom and pop business owners who see a high volume of people every day. And for me, it doesn't help to get specific because you would think a chiropractor, but it doesn't necessarily go both ways with the with the business, you know. So I wouldn't bank on that. I would just say, you know, small business owners, neighborhood business owners who are interested in connecting with a, you know, Spanish-speaking attorney. Those are the best referral sources.
So it really seems from your examples too. It's really it seems a lot to be kind of enveloping the personal relationship aspect of that owner to their customer base or their client. Like they will talk about those level of things personally with them. So wherever that relationship might exist with depth or with longevity, maybe. Yeah. And I know that kind of comes with the territory when it comes to like your tax person, your trust and estate attorney, your realtor. Like these are people you've known for a long time, and they talk to you about stuff. You know, how old are your kids now? Oh my gosh, they're adults now, and you're a grandfather. Whoa, that's great.
Yeah. That's exactly. It's about having that level of trust and knowing, you know, feeling comfortable referring them and giving them basically an introduction to the person you're going to refer them to. Oh yeah, I know him. You know, he's a good guy. We're friends, and he's helped clients before, and he knows how to do this. Talk to him. Yeah, he'll tell you whether you can do it or not.
Yeah. So I have a chapter-specific question. I've noticed that there seems to be a growing contingency of men in our chapter that are growing beards, and I'm wondering if you guys are trying to combat the baldness contingency of myself and Mark and Ray. I'm wondering if you have a secret cabal happening of hair growth guys against the hair going away guys.
I've been meaning to shave. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Lies. I think that's part of the cover-up, guys. All right, there's going to be a bald meeting after next Wednesday. Everyone stay for 5 minutes. We're going to talk about what we're going to do about this.
Yeah, no, I was supposed to shave today, but I didn't get around to it. So.
Ha! Another lie. First time on the show, 2 lies concurrently.
3 lies and you're out. You're not coming back on Andy Cruz's podcast.
2 lies and a truth? What is it? Two truths and a lie. Yeah. I can't even get the name right.
2 truths and a lie, yeah.
All right, so, okay, Alex, I'm going to talk about Alex for a second here.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so, you know, you're in, what age were you when you realized, I want to be an attorney? How'd that happen? Like, how did you end up here? You're in PI. At some point, you were like, I'm going to be an attorney. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to go to law school. And then I'm going to have this, like, focus.
Well, you know, during undergrad, when I was working, I was also volunteering at a local neighborhood community center where there were language exchanges going on between helping teach English to Spanish-speaking immigrants. So I did volunteer that, and I really enjoyed at that time being in the nonprofit sector. I was basically, and I said to myself, I really like this kind of work. I'm going to stay with this work. So all through law school, I had internships. I received stipends. I was getting paid, which was really cool through these nonprofit organizations to clerk at nonprofit organizations in Chicago and here in San Diego. And then I said to myself, I see myself becoming a nonprofit staff attorney. Like that was my dream title. I wanted to be a staff attorney at a nonprofit and just help people and get a salary, a relatively low salary, but it was, a salary nonetheless. And I was doing attorney work.
Noble work, if you will.
Noble work, yeah. Though I think at the end of the day, I think everybody does noble work. I don't really distinguish anymore between, is it nonprofit or for-profit, because I started to see how nonprofits were being very aggressively run like corporations. You had your board of directors, you had your discussions.
It's really just a tax code. The entity and structure is really business.
And there was a lot of infighting. It was nasty. It was nasty. I saw it at several.
What's a different word than noble then? Because at the onset, I'm hearing you. It sounds like, that's a noble cause. Like I would like to be a staff attorney for a nonprofit. But
it's a noble cause, but just in terms of the execution, it was very cutthroat.
Wow.
I saw this at several nonprofits.
Wow.
And then I just I graduated law school and there were no jobs. My contacts who had given me the internships and I'd done the clerking, there were no opportunities.
When was this?
This was
like early 2000s.
Yeah, like I'd say maybe 2014, 20. No, this is 2014.
Oh, 24. Got
yeah.
It. Okay.
Just my contacts weren't able to come through with jobs. There were no jobs basically. So what happened was I was in Chicago. I got licensed there because that's where I was from, and I had no job prospects. So I just started going to court. I started court watching. I had nothing to do with my time.
What am I going to get up and do today? I think I'll just go sit in court and hear what happens.
Yeah, exactly. I had nothing to do. I had a couple suits. And I literally had I was volunteering.
I'm loving this, by the way.
I was volunteering at a nonprofit, a domestic violence clinic. I was doing restraining orders for free. I was filing restraining orders, and I was doing that a couple days out of the week. But the other days, I was like, I don't want to just stay at home. This sucks. So I just started going to different courthouses, and I started watching. I watched everything from criminal law cases to civil cases to foreclosure defense, everything under the sun.
Dang, so you're just like being a student of the process.
Yeah, I would just pick a court today because in Chicago, I rarely drove. I would take public transportation everywhere. I would take the bus, the L.
That's the only thing I know. And it's the Windy City. So Chicago blew you this way.
It always got very cold in winter. So I would take the train everywhere. I would take the bus, and I would just say, which courthouse am I going to go to today? And you had the Daily Center, which was downtown. It was like, I don't know how many floors. There were so many floors. When you got to the top floor, you could see on a clear day the other end of Lake Michigan, which is insane because
that's super high.
For those of you who don't know, Lake Michigan is like a sea. When you're
crazy.
Standing ground level, you cannot see the other end of the lake. But
so from the south side, you can see the north side of the lake?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
How high up were you? I mean,
I think
it's okay if you give me a window here, like 80 floors, 110 floors. Like that's high.
I think it was only 30.
30, get out.
I think so, yeah. And I remember because I would go to...
You guys, I'm apparently terrible at math.
I actually, don't quote me. I don't remember. But the Daily Center was the biggest courthouse in downtown. So I just started going to court, and then I would watch. And then I would see basically if there was an attorney who I felt I had a good vibe with, I just went up to him or her. It wound up usually being a guy, but I would just talk to them after. And that's how I met my buddy Sal. I saw him basically representing a guy. It was a domestic violence case, and he didn't really strike me as a stereotypical stiff suit attorney. He was like a really cool dude. He was Latino, Spanish speaking. He was like he seemed to have a lot of street credibility, if you will, coming from Chicago. And I saw the way he was talking to his client. I saw the way he talked to the judge. He was using simple English. He was talking like a normal dude. So then after that, I went up to him. I was like, "Hey, I really like the way you did the sentencing hearing for your client. That was cool." He's like, "Oh, okay. Well, what do you do?" And I said, "I just got sworn in." He says, "You sworn in as a cop, or what?" He's like, "Why are you watching?" I was like, "Oh, I just became an attorney."
Sworn in as a cop.
I became an attorney. He said, "Okay, well, I'm really busy. I have a high volume practice." So he started sending me to court, basically. So I started doing court appearances.
Basically, it's like, since you're already here, you might as well be doing work for me.
So I would go to court. I get yelled at by judges, opposing side, because a lot of times he would send me unprepared. And then,
okay.
And
So it wasn't your presence; it was your unpreparedness.
Yeah, I mean, but most people were cool. Like the judges were cool. They sympathized with me. They're like, it's okay. It's
Like,
okay.
oh, this poor young lad.
Yeah, and I would, everything. I was doing foreclosure defense. I was covering family law cases. The family law cases were really nasty.
Oh yeah, I
cover
can
like
imagine.
DUIs and civil cases. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I cut my teeth, and then he would send me. I'd have to drive to all these different courthouses. The traffic in Chicago is legendary, so it'd take me like an hour just to get one way. So I would be, he'd send me to the south side, he'd send me to some rough neighborhoods, and then you go to the suburbs, and I was learning. But the cool thing is that was 10 years we kept in touch, and now we work together on immigration cases. So,
wow.
So yeah, it paid off. But that's basically how it was. So I would come home tired. I made like $50, $75, but I was like, oh, I learned something,
Yeah.
That's just what you. And then what happened was I started like getting cases, and then I started working on them with him, and then I came back to California, and then I just said, well, let me plant my flag. And that was a really long response to your question. I don't even remember what your question was.
No. I was just talking about like what's the kind of the what was the kind of the lineage of how you got here? Like from going to undergrad and then getting into going to law school and then having some initial experience. Like it's been quite a road.
Yeah. So because like I said, when I was doing the nonprofit, when I was doing the volunteer work teaching English to Spanish speakers, they would all talk about immigration. And I'm a big movie guy, so I was seeing these stories. I was seeing these stories in my mind of people coming over, how difficult it would be for them and their childhood and their upbringing. So I was like, oh, well, that's where, that's what I want to do. I want to do immigration because I speak Spanish. But that's kind of how I wound up here. Yeah.
So when you look at like the future for your practice, where is it that you envision yourself? What are you working towards right now that like maybe we don't take time in our chapter meeting to talk about? Maybe it doesn't come up in your one-to-ones, but, if I were to say, okay, Alex, in, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, where do you envision yourself in the practice? How would you respond to that?
It's not to say I'm not ambitious, but I'm very grateful with the way things are now. I think the most important thing is the well-being at the firm. So I have two, my employees, they're wonderful, bless their hearts. They're honest. They're so hardworking. So I always make sure, are they okay? So that's my first concern. I have an attorney who works in my office as well. So I just make sure, is everybody okay? Just stop in, check in once in a while. Everything okay? Not prying in their personal lives, but is there anything you need to talk about? Is your workload okay? Is anything, that's my number one priority. And then, my number two priority is, my well-being, my physical, mental well-being. And I guess at the very bottom, we can worry about income, because thankfully, as long as those two things are okay, we're good. We're good.
The income kind of comes out of the funnel, right? You put all the other stuff in it, and then income and provision comes from that.
Business, income comes and goes. So I don't have any specific goals in netting or grossing a certain amount. I don't. For me personally, I've had opportunities to become a high volume practice, but I've consistently turned it down just because I got to make sure my staff's well-being is the priority.
It would be a real change in pace, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even the style has to change, I think, a little bit too, I have to imagine.
But that's why I co-counsel a lot of my cases, frankly. I co-counsel them because people I work with, they're my friends. I've known them for years. So it gives you an excuse to, like, I had a case with my friend. She was my very first legal assistant, and now she's worked up the years. She's an attorney, and she has her own practice. So I send her a lot of cases. The other time, a couple of weeks ago, we had a case out in India in the desert. So we drove out to the desert together.
Oh, wow.
That was really cool. So versus me driving alone, listening to music, or, just thinking about my mind wanders driving down the desert. No, the whole time we're talking. And then after that, it's like, oh, well, let's stop by this store. That vegan place got good reviews. Let's go check that restaurant out. Let's go to that store. Next thing you know, it's like, oh, cool. And we wound up winning the case. So that was cool.
Cool. Neat.
Yeah. And another good thing is obviously sharing the stress as well.
Yeah.
If you have a case that's going to trial.
Sharing the stress. What a wonderful way to put that.
Sharing the stress. So I think that's really important. And because when you run your own business, sometimes you're in a closed universe. And you're just dealing with these four walls. But I co-counsel a lot of cases because I don't mind splitting the fees because these people are my friends and I've known them, and I trust them. I trust them with my life. Yeah. So how cool is it to work with someone like that?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you a couple more personal questions, if that's all right.
Sure, absolutely.
So, when it's all said and done, and we're talking about legacy a lot these days, I've noticed, I'm approaching I'll say second half of my life. I'm 45 now. I'm looking at the other end of life, not just my 20s and 30s anymore. And, I started thinking more about, and I know a lot of people around me start talking about like legacy. What are we going to leave behind, and how's that going to look, and what kind of impact you want to, look back in the rearview mirror and say, oh, I'm so glad I did that. If you were to put yourself in that place, Alex, the person, what would you want your lasting legacy to be?
Well, he cared about people, and he worked hard and did a good job, and was able to take care of his loved ones, and yeah.
Is there something in your life that you've been just really inspired by that you find yourself thinking about a lot? That you like frequently revisit, either mentally or emotionally? You go, oh man, that was just such a critical moment or impactful part of a season of my life. Or
that's a great question. I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
It's kind of one of those things that's like we end up kind of carrying these things with us, and every once in a while we kind of pick it out of the bag and go, oh yeah, man, that was really meaningful, and we just keep on going in life, and we just kind of keep carrying it with us. Every once in a while we look at that thing.
I don't know. It's tough with work because with the cases, it's kind of like we're problem solvers. Okay, do we fix this problem? Move on to the next one. Move on to the next one. This client's upset about this. Okay. That other attorney's not responding to the emails. How do we fix this problem? The judge was very rude, and not only was the judge rude, he gave a really bad ruling. How do we solve this problem? So it's really just problem solving, moving on. I would say outside of that, and we'll probably get to this later, probably the one of the forms of therapy is art for me, and that's making movies. So that's probably what I would say. Those are really the real spontaneous moments in life.
Mm-hmm. You find yourself thinking about that a lot?
Yeah, because I feel like my life, cinema and music are kind of wired through my DNA. So I see everything from a cinematic lens, from a movie-like lens, which can be bad because then I start anticipating what could happen, hypothetical situations, but then they mushroom into something way too visual. It's probably not even going to happen. So the good and the bad is basically that, like living life. Life is a movie, life is a stage, and we're all just actors passing through.
Yeah.
So I would say that's how, at least the artistic element helps kind of bolster the law practice because we are storytellers. So
yeah.
Storytelling is important.
I remember the first time I came to your office, we spent a good bulk of that time talking about music and movies.
Yeah.
You had shared
with your drums and that Pink Floyd song I recommended.
yeah, and then you had shared some of your own music with me. Stuff you had written back during Shutdown. You had a friend you were writing music with.
Yeah, for sure.
I was really impressed by that. I mean,
Thank you.
What can happen sometimes is we see each other every Wednesday, and we're kind of having this focused approach to what we're doing, and then we do these one-to-ones with each other. But then sometimes we spend a little less time talking about the things that we're really either compelled by, motivated, or very interested in, outside of the meeting. Like, I absolutely love horse riding and awesome. Caring for horses and being outdoors and all that. Cool, I absolutely love it. And I don't spend a lot of time talking to BNI because it has nothing to do with what I do. But man, if I could be on the ranch every day after I'm doing work and I could just be there working hard, I love outdoor hard work. I just do. Can't explain it. No, Manny, I'm not coming to your job sites to swing hammers. That's not what I'm talking about. Because you know what? At the end of that is a ride. And you go ride and watch the sunset, get to the top of a hill, something. Yeah, it's really therapeutic. There's something about getting dirty and doing work that then there's a reward connected to that's just rewarding. And I absolutely love it.
Yeah, which is the same reason as kids, we would always you'll play and run around, get into fights, and you'll get injured. And we would always, in the Midwest, we would always, throw leaves during fall and stuff like that. So these kind of things, unfortunately, you don't see it a lot with kids anymore these days. Yeah. But those kind of things, we would do it. We would get dirty, and then we would go to sleep. We didn't have the phones. We wouldn't stay up late. We wouldn't have ADD, ADHD, all these kind of situations, because not to say that's the only context in which it applies. There are people who are, diagnosed legitimately with it, but it seems these days so many children are having issues with retention, basically.
Of course.
And, thanks to the phone.
We're conditioning it, dude. I mean, let's just say you're the attorney in the room, so you have to be careful with what you say. Intentional. Yeah. We're conditioning the behavior. Okay, I'll say it.
But basically, what you're saying about getting dirty is important because we would, and then at the same time, it would be exercise. It would be exercise because after school, you would run, you do cardio, you fall, you get injured, you're crying, you get back, you get back into it, fight, and get really upset with your friends, fight. Then the next day, you don't talk. A couple days later, you play again. And then you come home, you eat dinner, and then you go to sleep. But there was something to be said about that activity, outdoor activity, which is we got to have the kids do it more these days.
And I know that you're motivated and very interested in creating. So I know you're using the word art in a couple of occasions, but it's really you're creating. You're making something out of nothing, or you're making a vision like come to life. Where do you remember that starting in your life?
Like I said, movies have always been wired just through me. I mean, my parents, they would bring home like bags full of Beta movies.
Beta movies.
Beta player, yeah.
Everyone who's under 30 is like, what'd you just say?
Beta.
What?
So
they don't even know what VHS is. You're talking about Beta?
Beta, and then VHS, and then Laserdisc. We had Laserdiscs.
Laserdisc.
Special collector's edition Laserdisc.
Oh my gosh. Did you have a Laserdisc player?
Yeah, I did.
Newsflash, Alex's parents were rich.
Well,
Laserdisc, wow.
I don't think so because my dad would just hoard with the Beta videos, and he would come down with bags and bags of Beta tapes, and those were not expensive back in the day. So he would just bring them all home, and we would just watch it.
That's also what rich people do, is they are resourceful and they don't spend money flippantly, apparently. So
my dad was bless his heart. My dad is my parents have always been frugal, so they would find a way.
Told you they're rich.
I would say definitely.
What came out of today's show? Alex's parents are super rich.
yeah. Just minting money with lots of properties and sure, absolutely whatever you say.
Saving those Beta tapes.
saving those Beta tapes. So they would come home and they would just bring all these videos and these movies, and I would just watch them with my parents, and we would just. I became such a fan of movies after that,
and a student too. Like not just a fan, but like you study it on your own. Like I can tell, and you can see the effort that you put in, the pre-work, and pit stop real quick. I know when I talk about video with people a lot, even in a setting like this, a lot of it is what you do before you show up. Mm-hmm. Like when you show up, you're just executing the idea. Yeah. There's very rarely, that's not true. There's occasionally things that they happen spontaneously that are like, oh my gosh, that's better than what we prepared. There's a lot of legwork that goes into preparation. And I know you emulate that too, because you're thinking through, scripting out, putting your scene blocking, and you're looking at, well, this should look like this. Who should do this? Who could I have do that part? What should they be saying? What's the scenario? And, I also, the reason I'm saying that is because it's very representative of the complexity of painting a picture, which is a direct translation to what you do. Mm-hmm. And what's been interesting with me in this process is when I've talked with other members of ours in the chapter about things that they're motivated by or interested in or hobbies, there's a lot of commonality between length in your industry and the success of that industry and common traits in the personal side of what interests you. Mm-hmm. It's been very fascinating. It's almost unhard. It's almost unhard. It's almost hard to unhinge those. It's hard to unhinge those from each other.
Well, they're tied together.
Yeah, because they're walking around with you. Like that's the deal.
Yeah, which reminds me of that video I showed the group where I had the client's name removed. But basically, I came up with this idea that we were getting nowhere with negotiations on this case, and that's when I got the idea. Hey, let me film a short documentary on the client, and that made a big difference. The prosecutor said she'd never seen it before, and she basically gave us a really good offer after that. Yeah. So that's one of those instances where my passion really fit like a glove into this specific case, and he was just such a sweetheart of a client. He was such a good guy, and I had just finished my last movie, and I asked my co-counsel, I was like, hey, we're not getting anywhere with negotiations. We're doing our lawyerly discussions and back and forth emails, conversations, meeting with the judge, chambers meetings, preparing mitigation packets and doing all this. I was like, we're hitting a wall here. I said, what if we were to make a short 5-minute documentary on this guy? And my guy said, well, I've never seen it before. If you want to try it, nothing to lose. I was like, well, he's such a good client. Heck, let's try it. And it worked.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's the one I showed to the BNI.
Yeah. Group. No, I remember that. It was very moving. Yeah. And I also think that speaks to the power of multiple things. What you do as a career, and then how you create as another, and then how those two things kind of blend and merge. Yeah. Because you really are storytelling. And it's not that you're story fabricating, you're storytelling.
Yeah.
And especially when someone's injured and there's been harm to their person,
Mm-hmm.
and also harm to their future in a lot of cases where, my life isn't going to look the same way anymore. There's an impact. There's a very personal and direct impact for people. And one of the best ways to convey that is through imagery and through storytelling and conveying with the visualization of said story. So I've ever since I met you, I was very impressed and also just fascinated with your fascination of the arts.
Absolutely.
Because I think I think if we put stereotypes on the table, you're like a lawyer and like a movie producer. Like, I don't think those things play in the same sandbox, but in your case, they absolutely do. It's stereotype because kind of is, but
yeah, sure.
And I know that there's been a lot of law shows. There's a lot of television or movies that are based on law or cases or things like that. And that might be a good amalgamation of those two things. But I think for you personally, though, I just think it's evident that part really comes into play when it comes to you serving people.
Yeah, absolutely. And the most important thing is in storytelling is the details that make. I mean, you think of all the great movies you've seen. What are the lasting impacts? Your favorite scenes from a movie? It's the details. It's something it's something the character does, something the character says. Same thing with the client, because whether it's immigration, car accident cases, criminal cases. I mean, criminal cases. This is you're coming in against an uphill battle. Nobody likes your client already, especially in a trial or something like that, right? Immigration. Well, that person's just a number, has an A number. Car accident case, claim number. Well, who is this person really? And we have to show to the government, to the opposing side, to the judge. We have to illustrate who this person is, but it's with details, and it's not just, storytelling is, you do talk about it in the present tense, and you stay away from adjectives. It's not that, I was listening to a colleague of mine. They're trial attorneys. They have a podcast, and they're amazing trial attorneys. And they were mentioning, for example, when they speak to the jury, you speak in present tense and you don't use adjectives. So, there was a tall fountain. He was standing behind a tall fountain. It's like, no, he was standing behind a fountain that looked like it was from this year, that was approximately this tall, and he was walking. It was just another ordinary day. He was walking on the freshly mowed grass. You imagine you're walking on the freshly mowed grass. You look both ways before you cross the street. You're on the crosswalk. You're looking forward to seeing your girlfriend later that day. You step in the middle of it, then all of a sudden everything goes black, and you just, you wake up, you're in the hospital, and then so things like that. You walk people through, and that's why. Vice versa, it helps when I make a movie, when I write a script. They both complement each other in that way, because I'm basically trying to find, I have an unsympathetic character. I have a bad guy. Well, let me dig deep. Let me see, not humanize him, but let me walk in his shoes for a little bit, or her shoes. Who is this person? Let me show it to the audience. Same thing, let me show it to the jury. There was that one time I did an opening statement for my client who was, charged with, child molestation, which is the worst of the worst, heinous crime, right? But what's his side of the story, Because he's alleging he's innocent, right? So you hear these claims, and that's, the worst thing a jury can hear automatically is this victim is basically saying she was molested, So then my client is, how do we show his side of the story to the jury? How do we explain? Because he's alleging he's completely innocent, right? But with these charges, how do you do that? So that's, you walk in, everybody hates your client, But we got to tell the story to the jury, So yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's certainly a very heavy topic, especially in there's so much on the internet now that people talk about, and that specific topic has actually become much more prevalently discussed among people who we would look at as like celebrities or popular people, and they unfortunately have that backstory, a part of their life where they were molested.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't even, for example, the last trial with that, I did a trial with my co-counsel, and that the client was being charged with just that. Now, when you start a trial, you have to do voir dire. Voir dire is when you basically talk to the jury, get to know the jury, and figure out who are people you absolutely have to get rid of. It's not about, from a criminal defense perspective, it's not about selecting a good jury. It's about deselecting a bad jury. because you can never hope to get an ideal jury that automatically is going to be willing to trust your client, but you can at least get rid of the really bad ones. We went 2 weeks on voir dire. We had so many people had to get excluded because so many people had come forward and said, I've been victim of this. And it was really sad because so many of them, we'd have to come and speak to the judge. And then we had people come and say, the people who were in their 40s and 50s said, I've never talked about it until today, but I don't think I can be fair and impartial because I was molested as a child. So the people, and you feel horrible because you're here, your client is trusting you. He has a constitutional right to, so you have a statutory ethical duty to advocate for your client, but at the same time, it's tough. It's an uphill battle. You have people crying. They're not able, the judge just starts reading the charges. You hear people crying this is going to be a long day. Yeah.
And I should also say, and this is again, something that's from my Wayback Machine where, I know that at an earlier part of my life, someone had lied about that. And they lied about that. And then someone who did not do that ended up paying the consequence for that. So, it's not surprising for you to describe that it's an uphill battle and you walk in and everyone hates the person. But again, from personal experience, from the cheap seats, I'll say from the side, I watched this thing happen and I'm like, what? And there are unfortunately some people who are accused of things they have not done, and then they end up paying the price for that too. And that makes what you do so challenging, I think, too. Because there are falsified cases, I would say very much less than the ones that are actual. But
absolutely.
I don't know what you think about that, but
yeah. It exists. It happens. And it's just it's really difficult, it's really difficult having to parse through that. But just doing your job and having to tell the story to the jury is challenging. And I've also, on the flip side, I've represented people who are taking out restraining orders. Horrible things have happened. I've represented immigrants who were abused and molested as children and raped and things like that. So it's really sad. I mean, I worked on both sides of the spectrum, and I continue to work on both sides of the spectrum, but it's just it's sad. And the important thing is we have to tell their story. So what is unique about the story, and that's where details come in. So if something bad happened to this person, as horrible as it sounds, like what was something that specifically the person would do every time? What would you'd be looking up and you would remember seeing the door didn't have a door handle on it. I mean, these are really disturbing, horrible things. But these are the kind
very
of details.
Nuanced.
But that's what makes all the difference. That's what could potentially. I mean, everything comes down to credibility. Whether you're networking with someone, whether you want to be in a relationship, but do you trust the other person? Are you believing what you're hearing? Only way to do that is through details, not grandiose adjectives, sweeping statements. Something bad happened to me. He abused me. That's what I ask someone a question. Tell me what happened. Oh, well, he abused me. This is common in Spanish. They use this term. I say, abusó de mí. Okay. They expect you to know what that means. It's like, okay, what does abuse mean? Okay. How did it happen? Who did it to you? How often did it happen? And that's where you get the finite detail. Now you say because of this, every time I drive past a Wendy's, I want to cry, because that's where in the parking lot this person did that. So, but it's those things. And that's what make, when you watch a good movie, that's what stays with you. Because I can identify with that character,
Wow. Yeah. Wow, man. This is deep. We covered a lot today. But I'm super glad that we did. I mean, I know you have some of these conversations or conversations that are similar to this, kind of in and around members in BNI, in and around your conversations with members. But I want to kind of maybe tie it up with a bow by asking you two questions, and I'll ask them. Okay, here's what we're gonna do first. I'm gonna ask you my Larry King question, which I've been asking everybody: dead or alive, who do you want to have dinner with?
That's a good question. Dead or alive, who do I want to have dinner with? I was at dinner with you, Andy. That'd be
cool.
We
dinner,
can talk more. We can talk
Wednesday
more.
night.
we can talk more. I like to have dinner with Andy.
All right, dinner. All right, done. That's the first time that's happened. Probably also the last. So you and me, Alex. Okay, then the other one is.
How about you? If I can ask you. Would you?
So I was asked this question, and I had answered my grandfather on my mom's side.
Okay.
He was like an engineer, turned into like this great hobby baker because he took all the same subset of things that made him a great engineer, and the specificity of that, and then used all those same techniques and tactics in baking and cooking and making candy and all sorts of amazing stuff. He was phenomenal in the kitchen. And the other person is my father's uncle, Henry Cruz.
Okay.
And it's because of the military history. He was on the USS Arizona when it was bombed, and he lived. He lived until 2012.
Oh, wow.
And so when he passed away in 2012, our own family member had been one of 16 remaining survivors from the USS Arizona from the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
Wow, that's
crazy.
And
when I was younger, I didn't he had not been able to tell so much at the end, and I was too young to think maturely about how important that would be to me later in my life as it is now.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I look back at that and I'm like, oh man, I wish I could sit and ask him all these questions. Like, what's it like to jump off of a boat that just got bombed unexpectedly and you're in the water and people around you dead? That's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
And
Pearl Harbor set off so many chain of events.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And it's
totally shifted the
and it's not a notoriety thing either. It's not about that. I want to know his part of that. What is his firsthand account of jumping off of the Arizona and being in the water? It just seems crazy to me. So yeah, that was my answer.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so you're in the middle of a stadium with 100,000 people, and I'm going to hand you the microphone at center stage, and you get to thank somebody. Who is it you're thanking, Alex?
Well, I would, I don't know, just, I'm going to thank BNI for a very specific reason. Wait a second.
Okay, that's the first two.
I'm going to thank BNI because the majority of the actors in my new movie are from BNI, from my BNI chapter. And I really appreciate that because if one person sees the movie or if 10 people see the movie, this new movie, I've had professional actors, I've had professional acting organizations, even professional actors I've previously worked with, they refused to work with me on this project because they deemed it too controversial because of the subject matter.
Okay.
They said it was too dark, it was too controversial, and someone specifically said, we're not keen on referring our actors to you for this project. So,
got it.
The fact that I had my friends come on board to do this, and I brought in 2 actors who embraced the whole controversial aspect of it. Whether you think I think it's relative. I see it as realistic. I know some of the other members of the movie see it as it's just real. It's dark, but it's realistic. Controversial, I guess, is going to be relative. But I started talking to other BNI members, and I explained and then bless their hearts, they jumped in to do it.
That's awesome.
So I really appreciate the courage, just when you had other people who didn't want to work on it with me, so thank you.
Awesome, man. Well, that's good. I'm glad that you have found support where you were looking to have support
in an unconventional way, not necessarily directly with the business, but this is with my artistic therapy. So thanks.
I mean, look, dude, there's definitely some characters in our group. I think we're 2 of them, but there's definitely some more characters in our group. Not surprised that you would have found
they're
some
very good actors.
Yeah,
they're very good actors.
Yeah,
because we're all kind of playing a role in life. It's just a matter of how do we tap into that. Yeah, I'm floored by the great acting
that's so
this
rad.
team has done. So
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for for coming to do this. I know it's been a big chunk of time out of the day.
No,
but
thank you for the invitation. That's really nice of you. That's very selfless. Andy Cruz is very selfless. He's a very selfless person to take time to invite me to his studio. I mean, this is I could tell these cameras are not, they're very expensive cameras, and he could be charging for this. I really appreciate it, Andy.
Thank you, Ramses Hernandez, for the insurance. I want everybody.
Fall on my way out.
I want everybody. Don't do that. Wait, can you do? You can't represent yourself in your own PI. No, I want everybody to win. I want everybody to have a chance to sit in front of a camera where there's no consequence for you just doing you. And I think sometimes there's this big gap in making content where it's like, oh, well, I have to become this, or I have to act, and I have to do all this, and it's like, man. And I talked to Manny about this because Manny's actually done like commercials, and one of the points I was making to him, and then we were kind of talking about it real quickly there, was like, there's this perception that if I'm going to be in front of a camera, I have to look like the model that does this, and then the actor who's doing this. It's like, no, we sell services. We're solving people's problems. They need you to show up. Like, they just need you to show up and do the thing you do. And broadly now, especially the way social media's changed and YouTube and all that, it's like, they just need you to be there. You just got to be present. Just like we talk about in BNI, it's visibility, credibility, profitability. Got to be that visible first. And, you don't need to be some, smoking hot 6-pack ab dude in order to be on camera. So this has been wonderful for me to do.
And everybody can
I've learned stuff from people too.
Yeah. I mean, Andy, you're a wealth of knowledge. I always learn something from you. But the important thing is showing up, even if it's, for example, like being in a movie. Everyone is unique. Everybody has their own attributes. And, you don't think of it, but, I film a short scene with one of the BNI members. And then you see it on the big screen, like in an actual theater, movie theater, with the sound, everything. It's a really cool experience.
Yeah.
It's not something that happens every day. And to see yourself up there and then with a live audience, that's a really cool experience.
I got to do this promo once and it ran like at AMC theaters just for like this one day. And I saw it and I was like, this is super cool. It's like 90 seconds, but it was like a corporate thing, and it just played in front of this like private event. And I was like,
this was something you created?
Yeah, but it was like, yes, it was like at a private theater like lockout, and then it was on the screen to talk to the audience before the movie started. And I had to like format it a certain way so it would play like at the AMC. So I actually got to kind of learn how they accept and what format you need to send them in order to like put it in their machine. You can't just put a hard drive, a CD or a file in there and play on their screen. It has to be a specific way. And I remember sitting there, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like on the big screen. It wasn't like for public consumption necessarily, but I was like, at least this audience is seeing this thing. I'm like, wow, it's really big. This screen is huge. So it was pretty neat.
So yeah, so it's funny you mention that because the last movie I made, we were lucky enough to make it to the Chinese Theater in Hollywood.
Oh, that's right.
Film Festival, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so my last movie was screened in competition with other movies. So you had other people from those movies and their audience members sitting, and I think the theater was almost full. And this was in the Chinese Theater.
Dude, that's the Man Chinese Theater. That's a big deal, dude.
It is a big deal. So and we wound up winning at the film festival best ensemble cast. Had so many people in the. Many of them were BNI members.
That's so cool.
Now this time we have even more BNI members. So I say, look, the fact that the lights go out and you're in an actual movie theater, and you hear the music,
and you're like,
and then and you're waiting for someone to show up, and then you show up. Wow, and then like other people are watching. That's really cool. Like people are on their phones, like I'm on the big screen.
I love it.
Yeah, so I mean,
that's cool, man. I'm so glad that you've afforded everyone that opportunity. That's really neat.
I'm glad they come on board. Yeah. So I'm just very grateful for them.
Awesome.
I'm grateful to you for the opportunity. Thanks.
Yeah.
Man. I appreciate
I hope
you.
this has been wonderful for you. I really enjoyed this process. Yeah. I've loved every single interview we've done and
I like what you did for my friend. So. I love what you did for my friend. That's why I'm always trying to send people your way. I'm trying to have some colleagues who are like, I'm hesitant to get in front of the camera. I say, just do it. Just do it.
You can show them all your content. I'm gonna hand you. You just hey, here, look, see, I went and did it.
Yeah. It's no big deal. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Alex. I really appreciate it. If you want to come and network with Alex and I, you can see us every Wednesday down at the Chula Vista Golf Course in Bonita. That's right, the Chula Vista Golf Course in Bonita, 4475 Bonita Road. You can scan the QR code in the profile to register to visit. Open networking starts at 6:45 every Wednesday, and our meeting starts at 7. Thank you for joining the BNI Partners in Excellence show, and we'll see you again with another great guest next week.
And Andy's the president of the chapter, so you're going to be in good hands when you come and visit us.
Nerd Time. You can come and scrutinize how I lead the meeting. We'll see you there.